Hi, and welcome to the Millennial Money Canada podcast, a podcast to elevate your financial literacy so that you can live well, build wealth, give generously, and leave a legacy that you're proud of. My name is Guillaume Girard, financial planner, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Lightman, founder and financial planner of Millennial Wealth Advisors. Sam, we're finally recording this podcast together after a few
No.
tries.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. It was funny, right? Like we tried to get this up and running last week and technical difficulties, but I'm so excited for this to get this consistent up and running and hopefully deliver something that people want to listen to. So I'm really excited to do this.
Nice. What's the purpose or like the mission that we have with this podcast in your own words?
Yeah, I think what we really want to do is bring a level of authenticity into the financial planning space. Like we really want to give people an insight and a look into how, two millennial advisors are trying to build a firm focused on working with millennials, the highs, the lows. We really want to bring in that level of authenticity here, as well as bring in an element of financial literacy to it. So you don't just want to be sitting up here lecturing people on this is the right way to do things and this is the wrong way to do things. We've been doing this for a long time. We've seen people become successful in so many different ways. But what I think, at least I've been missing is, hearing that perspective of how a firm is built, how it's run, what their processes are, what's the journey from starting from nothing to trying to be a successful large financial planning and wealth management firm. And honestly, hopefully this is the start where we're building something really, really cool right now, and we can bring our clients, just listeners along the way for that journey. So I'm really excited to get this started.
Yeah, that's so well said. I love the fact that we get to document this, especially that where we start and the fact that we've met earlier this year, and now that we're growing this together. Another thing I would add to what you just said is my goal actually is to leave the listeners with some actionable insights into the financial planning strategies that we share, through our experiences, through working with clients, so that they can, walk away with actionable piece of stuff that they can implement for themselves. Although this is not like recommended advice, but at least give them things to think about so that they can get ahead financially and make better financial decisions. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. If we can empower people to make better financial decisions, and that's what people take away from this, and they're like, we don't care about your lives or growing your business. We just want the financial literacy piece. Sure, hopefully there's enough in it for that. Those things are so important because we recognize that there is so much out there right now of bad information around personal finance. And if we can come in and hopefully from a professional level, like show, hey, this is actually how this stuff works, and here's when it may be a good decision, here's when it may not be a good decision. I think that hopefully will add a lot of value to the people listening.
Who is I would say the ideal client? Who is this podcast for?
Yeah, I would say our podcast is, really it's for anyone who wants to watch two people trying to grow a business and, trying to share how we do it and the best practices along the way. But I think, specifically who we talk to in the language that we speak is the millennial language, right? Like what is it, Gen Y, and just, you know, understanding that there's so much out there from the DIY world to all of these kind of scammy financial products, as well as there's this overwhelming sense that, especially people in our generation, their focus is on living their best lives. They don't want money to be a burden for that. They want it to empower them to live their best lives. And so if money is a constant stressor, which we find for a lot of people that we talk to, it is, and we can help alleviate some of that, through conversations, through financial literacy, and best practices, and just talking through some of this stuff, then again, it's a job well done, right? And so ours is focused on talking to millennials, people. We're going to be going through some business owner styles of conversations. We're going to be bringing on subject matter experts from time to time as well, and really just talking about how to live your best life with money empowering you to do it, not hindering you. And that's what I want the focus of the podcast to be.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, of course, the firm, that you've launched and that I've, joined you along your journey is like definitely primarily targeted or servicing millennials. And I did helping millennials target the issues that they're dealing with, which they're different than Gen X and baby boomers that they've been through, right? Depending on the stages of their life that they're at, whether they're employed millennials or business owners or self-employed and looking to incorporate like whether they're growing a family, whether they're buying their first home, whether they're actually upgrading their home to a bigger home, whether they're buying their first real estate investment property. Like a lot of people who we deal with, like they're doing this for the first time, and they probably want someone who will be advising them throughout the journey, as they grow, along their financial journey, right? So I think that's where we're positioning ourselves. And like you mentioned, this is who I think this podcast will be primarily targeting to, who we're hoping to speak and to be relevant as to like where they're at in their journey and what they're dealing with. So, talk about like financial planning a little bit, as far as what are the 6 tenets of financial planning, because I think people
You're gonna
don't
quiz me.
fully understand. Yeah.
I said,
No,
you're gonna quiz me
sorry.
right now. I'm joking.
But
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Just expand a little bit on like what is financial planning, because from my experience of being in the field for, I would say, the last like 2 years, people don't know what financial planning is at all.
Yeah.
So like in terms of like, they think about, oh, you're a financial planner, what stocks should I buy, or like what portfolio should I invest in and whatnot. So tell the audience a little bit how we approach financial planning.
Yeah, so it's definitely, and like how we just approach conversations, I think is a lot different than what is typically seeing out there from the mass market. And it's really relied on, optimal outcomes for clients, right? And so there's a number of different things that go into that. So we look at the cash flow, we look at their portfolios, we look at the tax side of things, make sure that we do good risk assessments and make sure that we, update and monitor. I don't know if I hit all 6 of the tenets of financial planning there. So that's kind of like the, academic side of what goes into, a financial plan. But realistically, we take a little bit of a unique approach when we, talk to our client base and even talk to listeners. Like, many of you, if this is the first time you're tuning in, you probably, you may have seen me on social media before. You probably know a little bit about kind of my background, just from like maybe TikTok or LinkedIn or something like that. But it's a very like evidence-based approach, but it's very flexible based on the individual's lifestyle, what they want, right? Like from everything from, telling people who make a lot of money, but they're first generation making money and they're hesitant to spend, tell them to spend more, right? Enjoy your life that you've created, right? If you want to buy your partner a nice gift for Christmas, you don't have to worry about the anxiety part of it because you're in a good financial position, right? It's really a message of empowerment that we try to deliver to our clients. And instead of, again, and one of the things I find a lot is, people tell me anyways, is that like every time they go see a financial planner, they feel really judged. They feel like they're not where they should be and all of that. We want to make sure we're empowering our clients. And even if they're starting in places where maybe they are a little bit behind, whether that's due to high student debt, moving to the country a little bit later in life, or just simply, going to university or working their way up a corporate ladder where they're in their 20s and 30s. They weren't at high paying jobs, but now they are, and they feel like they're a little bit behind. It's about looking at where you are right now, like the old cliche saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Like you have to start here, and we really want to empower our listeners and our audience to, take stock of where they are, be grateful for where they are, and let's look at where you can get to. Right. And deliver it in an evidence-based approach. And even from a financial literacy perspective, making sure that they're understanding the tools available for them to use. And that's, again, one of the goals of this podcast is like, we're going to go through those tools from the financial literacy side with our clients and with our listeners.
Yeah, that's so well said. What I love about financial planning the most, I would say, is how customized it is to each and every individuals and families and situations, because
Mhm.
it's unique to your own situation. There's no two plans the same. There are going to be similarities as far as how you plan for certain things. There are optimal ways in order to, save for a down payment or leverage
Mhm.
certain investment accounts or certain tax planning approaches. If you're a business owner, like there are standardized um, strategies that can be applied to many situations. But as far as like your own situation, your own goals, and your own values in life, it's so unique to you. So having
Mhm.
a plan, and just to be technical here, that covers the 6 tenets. We talked about cash flow planning. So planning your spending based on what matters most to you, whether, like you said, it's buying something, splurging on your wife or your family, but also knowing that like you're on track to achieve your financial goals in life. So cash flow planning, retirement, investment, insurance, tax, and estate planning. So there's
Mhm.
so much to it that I feel some people maybe don't know about, and we hope that through our financial literacy or elevating financial literacy through this podcast, I hope we're gonna be able to bring them valuable
Mhm.
insights into all these topics. So, can you
Yeah.
talk about a little bit? What's your view on the show format that we want to bring to the listeners? Yes, we're gonna talk about these topics, but what's our game plan here as far as like what the listeners can expect?
Well, we're gonna be as down to earth as we can be, just from a general like way we're discussing this. I find that a lot of podcasts I've listened to are really, really high level technical. And it's great if you're into that stuff or your other financial advisors. But there isn't a lot of really kind of just, you know, simple financial information out there in the marketplace for people to really better understand some of these more complicated topics. So first of all, we're not gonna be as very technical. We're gonna boil it down to, the simple concepts and explanations here. But in terms of a format, part of the show is going to be just listening to, and I mean, like, if you guys hate this, we'll change
Yeah.
directions. But we really want to be authentic here. Part of the show is going to be, us going through our journey, walking through what a day in the life looks like. Some of the things we dealt with over the last week, some real life examples. That we have to go through both in our personal lives and professional lives, right? Because so much about being successful in any domain, whether you're a business owner, you want to be successful in your career as a employed professional, or whether you just want to be successful in life. You've got so many different things going on. You have to balance and juggle so many different things. So giving a bit of insight into how we do that as business owners ourselves, and then also, how we build a business and what we're trying to achieve here, just giving a real authentic insight into the highs and the lows of that. And then we definitely want a piece on financial literacy. So we'll have a different topic each episode. And then in some of the more complex like episodes where we do want to bring in subject matter experts, like business valuators, to come in and talk about when you need a business valuation done, or we can bring in like tax professionals, legal professionals, to talk about different type of transactional things that you may need to know when you're buying a house, selling or buying a business, navigating the job market, looking for a job offer in a competitive market, right? Those types of things, like how to get a step ahead. And obviously we're keen to listen to our audience as well, to understand what you guys want to hear from this too. But realistically, when we're looking at a show format, I think, throw in anything else that you want to here, Guillaume, because I'm just kind of shooting from my hip here. But
Yeah.
looking at, an authentic look and inside of what we're trying to build, as well as bringing in, talking about financial planning, different topics around financial planning, as well as bringing out affiliated subject matter experts to really help our listeners in different fields get ahead and stay ahead. And that's what we want to do. But I don't know, Guillaume, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, well said. I think it's going to be a mix of just us sharing our insights, and then, of course, having an expert in our network who will like join us to have their take on either client cases, or that we will, mock in order to bring, again, real life examples to listeners as to how we approach them, how we solve for those financial planning questions or issues or problems. So yeah, I think it's they can expect a mix of that. And then we'll see how it goes and who would be a great addition, to the podcast and the value that they would be able to bring to our
Mhm.
listeners that would make a difference for them. And I mean, I don't know what you think about, but like we might go on the tangent or on the margins of, maybe financial wellness and how that plays into financial
Yeah.
literacy. And then we might be able, we'll be on the margin as far as like what we can talk about that will ultimately impact, health span and your quality of life. And because we help with financial planning, but ultimately there's so many other aspects that are equally important, if not more important in life than just money. So I think we hope
Yeah.
to bridge all that together.
I agree, and that's really important to note too, because I think even I would say you kind of looking at your health journey and fitness journey definitely inspired me to get back into it myself. And I know that like having those types of conversations with people just in our everyday, our clients that we talk to, oftentimes the subject of like the gym and health and mental health comes up quite frequently, and it's not it's a really really serious issue that I think people need to talk through with a lot of their financial professionals because of the burdens that we're seeing in today's society around debt, around like especially credit card debt, around inflation, higher prices, right? Those types of things that's really weighing heavy. And it's not like I'm talking anecdotally, but there's studies out there talk about the stress and how people are suffering mentally from that stress. And bringing in people that are much more well versed on this than we are to help gain insight into how you can better handle that parts of your life, I think would be really valuable. But Guillaume, I'm curious to hear like I think this might be an introduction a little bit to a lot of our past listeners and some of my audience. So I want our listeners to learn a little bit about your journey and about how you ended up here. And please just kind of feel free to share where you're at.
Yeah, no, sure. But first
Yeah.
of all, I just want to say, I mean, I have like I have enough on my two hands to count how many clients I have. But I'm so proud I'm so proud to say that every single one of them works out, and like
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm proud of that. Like that just speaks so highly to as to like who obviously relates to me and who I I've onboarded so far, and then who I've been working with. But yeah, like everyone has a different ways to channel their energy, and of course fitness is a huge part of my life, and I'm so happy that you've taken on fitness to like the next level. So, and I think it's been making a huge difference for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for my story, like I think we should have like an episode maybe just on that, like even deeper as far as we go along. And I'm sure we're gonna all share like pieces of our past, on this podcast. But I want to share like originally, like why did I go into finance? And it actually you have to go back to 2008. And this I've never actually shared that. I would say publicly almost. What I mean by this is I remember it was 2008, and my cousin, who is about 10 years older than me, he's like, he went to compliance and anti-money laundering in his career, and he's a partner now as at one of the big four accounting firm. But he actually, he did the CPA, CFA, he did his master's, did his bachelor and master's at Sherbrooke University in finance. He was huge into finance. I had no idea about the world of finance whatsoever. And it was 2008, and it was at Christmas, and then he came and he said, "Oh my God, did you see Lehman Brothers went bankrupt?" And I had no idea what he was talking about. And he was like flipping. Like he was like, "Man, you don't understand how like a big deal this is." And this was the first time that I started looking into like, oh my God, like I've read on the news what the financial crisis was, but I didn't understand anything of it. And this was my first introduction to like trying to understand like what was going on. Okay, how does the banking system works? Like who were the agents? What were the factors leading up to the financial crisis? And then I just started watching documentaries. And that was my birth into the world of finance. And keep in mind, I love my parents and they share with me amazing like values and stuff, but financial literacy was not one of them. I had zero, always made great money, had zero financial habits that would lead or set me up for success in the future. And that's one of the reasons why today I'm in a position where I want to help other people uh, gain the knowledge that they need in order to get ahead and plan ahead. But yeah, no, that was my first introduction. And then, that led me to Bachelor of Commerce at the University of Victoria. which then led me to, an exchange in Singapore in finance, which led me, to doing the CFA, and then led me to Toronto. And I started working at Questrade as in the foreign exchange and contracts for different departments. So that's CFDs are very speculative instruments. So they are a derivative. They're a Delta One product, meaning that they are tracking futures contract. So you can bet, whenever a futures contract on oil or equities or fixed income is going up, you can put a little bit of money. You use margin mainly, and then you can benefit on the upside and the downside. Very speculative. And this is for mainly retail traders, retail speculators. And this was my introduction to the world of finance. And I started there, and I learned what you should never do with your money. And it was a great learning experience, which then led me to, and then I can talk about that like in way more detail in the future. I have so many stories from that point in time. Of course, I've made all the mistakes myself. That's why today I can talk about them. And I'm so excited to share so many mistakes I've made and that I see, a lot of clients who are coming to us right now for advice making, every day, right? It's just, I've never met someone who's highly successful, who's never made any mistakes. So it's just part of the journey. And I hope people can also learn from the mistakes that I've personally made in the past. So yeah, Questrade was amazing, but then I wanted something more institutional. And that's where I started looking, okay, what are the institutional traders and institutional portfolio managers using as far as technology? Because I was like, well, if I can be on the technology side and get exposure to them, then that could be my segue into the industry. And that's where I learned about Thomson Reuters. And I didn't know that they were one of the richest family in Canada. And they own a software called Icon at the time, but like a platform, and they own like a huge chunk of their financial market data business. So anyway, I went to work for them for about 5 years, and that was just an amazing experience. I can probably go in more detail in further podcasts, but yeah, I got exposure to everyone on the streets, from like the big sell side institutional trading desk to the pension funds in Canada, where our retirement money is part of. I like the big asset managers, the Bank of Canada, and across the country, right from Quebec all the way to BC. So that was an amazing experience. And then I went after 5 years there. I was looking to go into wealth management, so I had a little stint at a family office, which, of course, for privacy reasons, like I'm hoping to be able to share some experiences as far as like the insight of what kind of a family office is for, how they usually operate and whatnot. But of course, there's a lot of stuff that I will have to be careful on how I'm sharing. But I am very excited to be sharing more insights into family office, because it's not every day that someone has the opportunity to work on a multi-billion-dollar investment portfolios that is owned by one single family. So that was a very unique exposure, very unique experience, which I'm extremely grateful for. But ultimately, my goal was to be working with people directly. And that led us to, us meeting earlier in the year and just growing a book of business. But ultimately, yeah, I want to be working with business owners directly, employees, families, and make a difference, for them and advising them directly. I'm not looking to, I wasn't looking to be on the institutional side and just be more on like the operational side of the investment business. Because the fun and the fulfillment from this business, to me, it's helping people get clear on their goals, clear on their values, and helping them get closer to them with like very, smart and evidence-based planning and sensible strategies. That's, to me, is where I really get fulfillment. And I mean, you have you have a similar, I think, love for the business as well. So how about you share how you got into finance? Because I think you have an interesting start as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you guys couldn't tell from that, I think Guillaume has forgotten more about investing than I'll ever know. Trying to decipher some of those some of those terms in there. I like, seriously though, like the level of complexity that goes into some of these big institutions and trading, it just reminds me of something I think I heard Mark McGrath, financial planner, he shared on Twitter the other day. He said big firms will spend millions of dollars a day trying to get an edge in trading, And most of them fail at it. So why don't we just sit back and enjoy the ride, right? And I think you just kind of like, open the hood a little bit into some of that. Like it's so complex, and you were just working within a department of a strategy of like a company that, in the States wouldn't even be that big of a company. In Canada, it's a pretty big company. And even that, like how much speculation and derivatives and complexity and all those fun terms that you are working on, it just kind of mind blowing. But thankfully, money shouldn't be that complicated, and isn't that complicated for most people. So yeah, no, that's a really cool story though, Guillaume. And I'm obviously thrilled that you're here. It brings a level of value and expertise to the table for this conversation and for any conversations we have with our clients. So it's always a pleasure. But yeah, I can share briefly about my background. My journey into finance started, just as kind of climbing the ladder, right? I was in university. I was 19 years old. I was working part-time. I think I was at Sport Check at the time, just trying to make my way through university, right? I had no RESPs to pay for my tuition. I didn't want to take on student debt, so I was like taking, I think, part-time classes and working part-time. And then this opportunity came up at a credit union, and I applied to it thinking that like, oh, this will be great. I can work 20 hours a week. And the starting pay, now this was back in 2013, the starting pay was $19 an hour. And so I think I was at like $8 or $9 an hour at Sport Check. And I was like, man, I'd be like living the high life, living at home still with my parents, making 19 bucks an hour, learning finance. I didn't really care for finance at that moment in time. But I applied to be a teller. And at the same time, I was also very entrepreneurial because I thought, hey, I want to start my own business one day. So kind of a bunch of different things going on all at the same time. I went to, like, just before I took the job in finance, I went to a financial institution, a big green financial institution, and asked them if they thought it would be a good idea to invest in this business opportunity that I had been presented. And it was only $1,000 buy-in to the business, and I didn't have $1,000. So it's like, what's the best way to do it? And they said, well, here's a credit card, here's $1,000 limit. You can use this. Again, not really having any background in financial literacy. I said, okay, this sounds great. It's an opportunity to buy into a business that I think is going to grow. And sure, I'll use debt to do it. Why not? So I did that, much to my parents' dismay, and ended up really like getting stressed out about credit card debt. So this was before I took the job at the credit union, and I went back to the bank about 6 months later and basically said, hey, I'm really stressed out about this. It's keeping me up at night. Like, is there any way that you can kind of term this out and pay it down? I didn't use those words at the time, but that's precisely what I was asking, right? Like, can we just like lock this into something and I'll pay it down? And they laughed at me. They're like, what was this guy talking about, right? Like, it's just a small amount of money. I think at that point in time, that would have been a great opportunity for someone who was actually a financial advisor to start explaining to me the concepts of like, hey, this is what you need to start working on. You don't want to take on debt right away. You want to make sure that, you're saving money first, right? Save a percentage of your paycheck, right? It should go into a tax-free savings account, stuff like that. That was never explained to me. Literally, as a young student, all they cared about was selling me a product that they could use to hit one of their sales targets. And then when I came back and asking for help, they didn't care. And that frustrated me so much. So when I got a job at the credit union, at first it wasn't like viewed as a career for me. I was just a teller working part-time. But then I really started to understand more about the financial side of, more about the technical side of money and best practices. And I started to interact with wealthy people all the time who were just coming in for deposits. And I would literally ask them questions, right? Like, kind of had no shame about this. I was like, so how did you get this? Like how did you have got like $1 million in your account? Like, how did you become this successful, right? Obviously very discreet, but, and credit unions, we were encouraged to have those types of interactions with our members. And they would share, and they would tell me like, yeah, I saved money and started a business. So I really started to understand like, okay, these are what successful people, this is what successful people do. And at that point in time, I got really, really angry at what had happened, the year prior with my bank. And I decided, you know what? I think I have the opportunity to really make a difference in this field. I'm ambitious. I want to learn, and I think that I can make a difference and help people here, not make this mistake that I made, and actually not start out, just by trying to sell people products, but also like start out by giving them advice first, right? And so, and that's driven me for the past 11 years. To, just to fulfill that vision that 19-year-old Sam had, where it was like, I just don't want people to get into that situation. It's driven so much of the actions that I've taken from social media, building out my audience there, focusing on financial literacy, those types of things. And it really drives kind of how I desire and attempt to give advice to, my clients today and just speak to people in general. And so just like kind of really high level career journey from there, I was at the credit union, wanted to move up in the world. At 21, I was a financial advisor doing loans, credit cards, term deposits, those types of things. Decided I wanted to focus more on financial planning, started my CFP at 21. And at 22, I left to join a mutual fund company, a financial planning company, and was there for 4 years. And then after completing my CFP in 2019, I decided to embark on starting my own firm and fulfill a vision I had when I first started my CFP, which was basically create my own firm, and be able to manage clients how I felt was the best way to manage them. And here we are now, 2024, and just, we're growing, we're having fun doing it. And I mean, I'm just so grateful, like, for where things are at. I mean, on social media alone, we're up to, I think, almost 100,000 followers across all platforms. And just the level of feedback that I get from people who would have been in similar situations to what I was in or worse, and have reached out and said like, hey, like, this video really helped change my perspective on this or another thing. I'm just hoping to bring that more to long form and be able to really dive deep into some of these problems and issues, facing people kind of in all walks of life, with their money. And again, I think they say that, people who are really successful, they always kind of have a little chip on their shoulder. I think if you ask me, that's my chip on my shoulder is like where I started, and like, how like I was just used even at such a small size. No one took the time to actually, like, at such a young age, no one took the time to actually like help me be successful financially. I had to really do it myself. And because the system isn't set up that way, it's not set up to actually help people be successful. It's set up to help successful people, but it's not set up to help people become successful. And that's a big difference.
That's so well said. Can you talk about why you started with short form or TikTok? Because that's ultimately, I mean, aside from our business connections, this is how I think I discovered you, or at least I got to know, your approach, or like how you were approaching certain financial planning topics,
Yeah.
which, I think a lot of people might listen to this podcast already maybe follow you on TikTok, which is one of your most important following platform. But can you talk about why you pick short form content to start with, and like maybe talk about a little bit about your journey about growing the platform?
Yeah. Well, I did a video when I wasn't supposed to do a video. What I mean by that is I was at this big firm, compliance heavy, don't do anything except what's pre-approved, all of this stuff. And I'm always one to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, a little bit on that front, where I feel like rules are a bit overbearing. So I made a video on TikTok because I saw the platform as a bit of a blue ocean for, financial information. I just didn't see any good financial information on there. And I kind of knew at the time I was leaning towards, going to start my own thing. So this is back in 2019. I think I made my first video. And it was a video of my wife paying off her student loans. And, just kind of celebrating that, the FIRE community, pay off debt, all that stuff. And then about a week later, I got locked out of my TikTok account, and couldn't remember my password for the life of me, and just kind of didn't bother with it, right? And I was just like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. Just went back to doing my everyday. And then a year later, I had left my firm, started my own business. I was like, I really gotta, be present on these platforms because I want to work with millennials, right? I've always really wanted to focus on working with millennials. And I was like, where are they? And I read this stat that like millennials are the second largest demographic on TikTok. And I'm like, okay, so evergreen platform, and it's mostly used by millennials, and the second or third most, the utilization of the platform was for education. I was like, that is a huge opportunity. Okay, so I got to get back into my account. I got back into my account. The video that I posted to my wife did like 22,000 views. It was literally the only video. And if you guys scroll far enough down on the platform, you can find it. And it done like 22,000 views or something. I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And then I also just kind of started scrolling a little bit, and I saw some people that I actually knew who started TikToks around the same time that I did. And they were at like 15, 20,000 followers. And I'm like, I feel like I can do a little bit better than that. Maybe that's just my competitiveness coming out. But I was like, I'm on my own now. I feel like I can do better than this. I don't have to ask for permission. Like I talked to my compliance department for sure, and they said sure. But so I was like, okay, let's do this. So I started making videos just on relevant financial topics. It wasn't even always like financial literacy. It was just like, hey, there's going to be an electric vehicle ban by 2035. I think that was one of my second or third videos, and that one got like 35,000 views. Because I knew like Tesla was a hot topic and all of this stuff, right? So I kind of incorporated some of that in there. And soon enough, I think after like a month, I got to 10,000 followers. And I was like, okay, there's something here. I didn't put any offer. I didn't even really tell people that I worked in the industry at that point in time. So I was really, really like nervous about like, I don't know, maybe it was just my own head, but I was really nervous about like, offending people or getting pushback at that point in time. And then just over the next like 4 or 5 months, I grew to about 50,000 followers. And then I finally like said, hey guys, this is like what I do for work. If any of you are interested in working with me, you can click the link in my bio. And I got like, I think 40 or 50 people reaching out right at that point in time. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really, really cool. And so, yeah, like from short form content, I just put information out there. That was literally all it was. Like there wasn't really any ulterior motive. It was just like, people are so hungry for this information, and it just got shared, and it was kind of crazy. Like it was a little bit surreal. So like about a year and a half ago, I think, when the first home savings account was first introduced and everyone was scrambling to figure out how they were going to implement it, I did a video on like when the budget had just passed, like all the ins and outs and the proposals and all this stuff. And that was the biggest video I've ever done. And it got over 1.1 million views. And I got a text from a client of mine. And he was like, hey, so my sister just showed me this amazing new account on TikTok. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, hey, that's my financial advisor. And it's kind of surreal how it like just comes back full circle. But yeah, anyways, like that's kind of my journey in starting short form. I've always wanted to do other types of content. Like I'm on Twitter as well and Instagram and YouTube a little bit, but again, this is just me, my ADHD brain. I have trouble with consistency, and TikTok seems to be the only platform I've really been able to consistently, post and do that. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why you're here. Help me with the consistency piece, and we're gonna crush this podcast thing and put out episodes weekly, and it's gonna be amazing. And so,
I love your story about this because. For the listeners, like, of course, you've applied this to growing a financial planning business, but this transcends every industry. Whether you're an athletic therapy, a physio, or, whether you want to grow just your brand online, like, of course, the space is getting even more and more competitive, and the ease of entry or access to entry is like so, the bar is pretty low. I mean, you can just start posting content, but like it just speaks so highly as far as like if you put high quality stuff out there and you gain momentum. Like you can build like a meaningful following and make a difference for people, but also like, significantly make a difference in your business. And I don't want to be like Alex Harmozy here, but like, it's like, it just speaks so highly as far as like how it's possible and how it's done. And although I'll put a caveat here, maybe that was your experience. Now, if I can share my experience,
yeah, go ahead.
Man, it's actually really hard. And it takes a lot to get used to just turning a phone over and like speaking intelligently for like a minute. And I think you're doing like such a wonderful job at it, but finding your voice, finding your pace, finding your delivery, to me, it's something that I'm still crafting. And I'm so happy that we've started a longer form content because I think I just naturally, I just tend to like gel more with that form. But like, I'm not giving up short form, and I'm hoping to kind of blend, the two together. But anyhow, if you're starting out and you're growing your business and you're starting online, don't get discouraged. You might not get to 50,000 followers in 6 months, but you need to keep at it and try to make every single video better than the last one. And I think over time you can. And I think the other thing I realized too, listening to Alex Hormozi, is like it doesn't necessarily matter as far as the amount of followers that you have, but like the loyalty from them, because you don't need that many true loyal followers that are really agreeing with your values and the service that you provide to have like a sustainable business and like to grow your business and to be successful. So I think right now, personally, I'm trying to reach out to people who are really interested in kind of what we have to share and the difference we can make for them, more so than necessarily just reaching out to hundreds of thousands of people. But yeah, anyhow, that's kind of like the vanity metrics. I think that's what I'm after. They're less important than I think we think. It's more the quality of followers that I'm after.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, right? And when it comes down to the content you're delivering, right? And it's not, your style is going to change over time, and everyone's style is going to be a little bit different, and it may not appeal to the masses. But the people that it does appeal to now have a library of your work to look through, and they can tell it's like, okay, so is this person worth working with? Maybe you're still crafting your voice and finding that, but regardless of what industry you're in, if someone has a question that you've answered, and you've answered it in a transparent way, you've answered it in a helpful way, and you've given them more than what they were searching for, and it was all free, that's step one of trust building, to eventually having someone reach out to you from a platform that, you've never met them before. You don't even know that like they're watching, but a lot of times, they are. And it's funny too, because the amount of people, like I probably met with 500 people over the past 2 or 3 years just from social media. And the amount of people who like, I shouldn't pay attention to this, but like I do pay kind of a little bit, pay attention to like who's consistently liking my stuff, commenting, all that stuff. I don't know. It's just a habit. I should probably stop. But the people that reach out, honestly, I don't really notice a lot of them are the ones that are engaging, right? And that's the other side of it too. It takes time. It takes you've got to be authentic, and you've got to put your voice out there, and realistically you've got to add value, and adding value, that's what we're trying to do with the podcast here, is add value. And we're not like entertainers. We're not gonna blow you away with super cool skills or tricks or whatever. I don't even know. But the point is that, we're trying to like, we're going to be authentic on this podcast, and we're going to deliver value on this podcast from a financial literacy perspective. And regardless of anyone listening, if all you do is just find a little bit of value from this podcast show, then I feel like it's a job well done.
Oh, 100%. And that's the goal. And like, I mean, I pulled up some stats on like the impact of like elevating financial literacy. And just to share one with you, is that if you a 1% increase in financial literacy in a country is associated with a 5% increase in personal saving rates. And then of course, and I was like, man, like, if we think broader picture or 30,000 foot view, like the impact that we can have on like the country as a whole with the financial planning strategies that we can share is really meaningful. So anyhow, it's just a much bigger why as to why we're doing that. Like this is going to have a meaningful impact for people and the country. And it's, I mean, aside from being an amazing contribution to the field, which we will talk in depth, I think, as far as like how we differentiate ourselves and from like maybe being product focused and being more client centric focused or planning focused. And we'll cover that in future episodes.
And we'll also talk about like what people should look for when they're trying to find a financial advisor, because we're probably not the right fit for a lot of the people that are going to listen to this podcast, and that's totally fine. But when you are looking for people, who should you be looking for, and what type of qualifications and sales processes and fees and structures are out there, and which aligns best with you, right? So all of that information we're going to share at some point as well. So
talking about authenticity, just very quickly, what are your fitness goals in the short to medium term? Very quickly, because as part of this podcast, I want to keep the listeners up to date with what we're accomplishing, fitness-wise. to encourage them to
Yeah.
chase, fitness goals that they may have for themselves, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was literally just talking about this with my wife yesterday. Like, what do I want to accomplish? Because every time I'm normally, by the way, like my history has been like I'm a runner, right? So I hit cardio and body weight exercises and all of that stuff, and that's always been my go-to. But like, I shared this the other day on LinkedIn. But like in March of this year, I started getting more back into like for the first time actually weightlifting and CrossFit, right? And so that's changed my outlook on kind of like where I want to be and things. I just turned 30 years old and I just became a dad, and I just felt like, hey, I have to start like getting stronger. I have to start, focusing on weights, because I've heard and I've read all of this stuff about how like, you want to make sure that yeah, I guess what is it? You're lifting heavier weights after 30. You're keeping up strength. It's better for long-term health. All of that stuff. So anyways, so long story there, but like goals are, I wouldn't say I have like a set goal in mind. Cause, and hear me out on this. I'm not trying to like chicken out of this question, but I found for me that when I set targets that I want to hit and I hit them. So like I ran half the marathon and I wanted to do it in like 2:10 or less. And when I did that, I found that like I was really unmotivated to keep going. And so I find that like when I set end targets, if I hit them, I really get super unmotivated after that to continue my journey. So I guess for me, it's more like an ongoing, like I want to be consistent at 5 to 6 days a week of working out and exercising. I want to be able to, do the kind of classic, like, can you bench your body weight and deadlift twice your body weight or squat twice your body weight? Like that's kind of my goal as well. So I'm getting close to that. So, I'm probably about 3 or 4 months away from being able to do that. And then from there, it's just continue, right? Like just continue to get stronger, continue to focus on, having that consistent habit in my life, and focusing on my health and prioritizing that as much as I can.
Wow.
What about you?
Nice.
What are your fitness goals? You can pretty much just bench press all of Victoria Island by this point.
Nah. Well,
Yeah.
funny enough, I'm the opposite of you. So
Yeah.
I'm also doing I would say part-time CrossFit now. But I'm trying to just keep the strength stuff pretty linear, like pretty stable. But I'm trying to improve my running a lot more because I do something called high rocks. At a high level, high rocks is basically 8 to 10K of running, and then there's like CrossFit stations in between. So 50% of the workout is running. So right now my goal is to improve my road running, but also trail running. And then next year I haven't really pinpoint everything yet, but hopefully do lots of road races, and then maybe a half again for sure. And then probably an ultra marathon. Like I'd like to do a 50K trail run at some point, in 2025. So that's and then the goal is to get my redemption into a high rocks competition, next year. But once my running has been really improved, because like I said, like running is such a big part of high rocks that until I've improved it significantly, I don't want to just give it a try. I want to improve the running and then give it another shot. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. And
When did you when did you start working out? Like at what age did
oh
you start working out?
man, I in the gym. So yeah, I passed my 20th year. Like 20,
Really?
I'm 34 years old. I started at 14 years old. That's in the summer of when I was 14 years old. I walked into a gym, Collège Anton-Giroir in Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec, where I'm from, and I bought my first membership. I remember I was with a friend, Xavier Terrien, if he listens to this podcast, shout out. But no, we walked, bought my first membership, and I never looked back. And it's been 20 years.
Isn't that crazy? Because like, I don't know if anyone follow his Instagram channel. He posts some workout stuff. I don't know if you want to. I don't know what your channel name is. Is it? But you'll see, right? Like the funny thing is, and you explain this to me. People will kind of look at the workouts that you do and think, oh my goodness, these guys so lucky with his genetics or whatever. And like, but man, you put the work in 20 years. You've put the work in, and it's been consistent, right? Like, and that's unbelievable to be able to look back and say, hey, it's 20 years of doing this one thing, and I'm at where I'm at now, but you're still trying to accomplish new things. That's like, Yeah, that's wild. That's amazing.
Yeah, that I mean, on the last note, like where fellow listeners can find us, personally, of course, if you want to add me on Instagram, personally, it's Guillaume Girard 2.20. But Financial Planner Guy is where a lot of like this content will be posted.
Yeah.
And
We'll
then
link
you, Sam,
everything in the
yeah,
podcast. We'll link all
yeah,
of our social media in the podcast notes. I'm starting to get brave enough to start posting a little bit of my workout regimen, but I just don't want to get laughed at yet. So
yeah,
I mean, I might wait for another year to really start posting any more of that stuff. But no, like yeah, like you can kind of follow us on all the channels there. But yeah, it's I like this. Yeah,
You're big on TikTok, so Millennial
yeah,
Money Canada there. And
yeah.
then also, if you want to join the Facebook group called Financial Independence for Business Owners. So if you're a business owner,
Hmm.
I mean, Sam, you're leading this with Heidi.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so that's something you can check out. Also,
Yeah.
make sure you visit our website at mwadvisors.ca. You can
Hmm.
learn more about our services, our pricing. You can subscribe to our newsletter,
Hmm.
which we're going to be more active. You can expect, again, a higher frequency of content being shared there. And yeah, I think that's a wrap for our first episode.
Yeah,
So
amazing. I love it.
thank you,
Yeah,
thank you
thanks for
for
joining, everyone.
listening. Yeah, thank you for listening, and see you in the next one.